The power I have as a prosecutor is that with a swipe of my pen, I can charge someone with a misdemeanor, the lowest level offense possible. And by virtue of that swipe of my pen, you will have to go to a courthouse and stand in line. You will have to come out of pocket and hire an attorney. You may get arrested for a few hours. You will be embarrassed in your community. You will miss time from coming onto the Google campus, all because with the swipe of my pen, I've charged you with a crime, which I may choose to dismiss 2 weeks later. It's an incredible amount of power. The power I have as a prosecutor is that with a swipe of my pen, I can charge someone with a misdemeanor, the lowest level offense possible.
Tell us, Kamala.
And by virtue of that swipe of my pen, you will have to go to a courthouse and stand in line. You will have to come out of pocket and hire an attorney. You may get arrested for a few hours. You will be embarrassed in your community. You will miss time from coming onto the Google campus, all because with the swipe of my pen, I've charged you with a crime, which I may choose to dismiss 2 weeks later.
Which I may choose to dismiss 2 weeks later. Oh my God, people. This is Patrick Bet David who tweeted this. And Patrick Bet David doesn't swear very often. So when he does, you know damn well it's for a damn good reason. Holy shit, this video is all you need to see to know how intoxicated Kamala Harris is. Kamala Harris gets with power. Imagine what she'd do as a president. Now, I'll steelman it, even though I don't really want to, and I don't think it deserves any steelmanning. I have no doubt, maybe, somewhere down in that podcast, I have to go find the original. She said, I have so much power, and so I have to exercise it judiciously and respectfully. And that's why I am the best DA ever, because I understand all of the terrible things that happen when I swipe my pen. Horse crap. You know, when she talks about embarrassment, she's not talking about exercising justice. She's talking about the process is the punishment. That's amazing. Oh, lordy, lordy. Everybody, good afternoon. We've got one hell of a show today. I went for my morning exercise, which was a 50-minute bike ride today. And I've been listening to Ivan on podcast. He doesn't know it, but I've been listening to him all morning. And I know that this is going to be amazing. So before we get into anything, before we even get into the sponsors of today's episode, let me make sure that we are properly across all platforms. We are live on CommuTube, where we will not stay for the better part of this, I don't think. And that's not out of fear of saying anything that the YouTube overlords won't like. They don't deserve us. We're live on Rumble. We look like we are live on the most above average community out there, Viva Barnes Law, .locals.com. We are. And we're good to go, people. All right. Ivan Raiklin. If you don't know who he is, I think many of you do know who he is, but you probably don't know who he is. You've probably seen a lot of those infamous, famous videos of some dude sitting behind Anthony Fauci, a number of people during congressional hearings, looking none too happy with the state of the world. Kind of looks like George St. Pierre. And I'm going to say that when he gets on also, because that's why I feel like I know him better than I know him. Very cool guy, very intense, and it's going to be amazing. We're going to be talking about Jan 6, Butler, Deep State, and stuff that you all know and love. But before we get into any of this, we got two sponsors today, and we got to thank our beautiful, wonderful sponsors of today's episode. One being American Financing. Do you get stressed because your monthly income just doesn't seem to cover the bills anymore? You're not alone. Most Americans feel this way every day. Everything is still ridiculously expensive. The interest rates are obscene, and we're reaching more and more for our credit cards to cover basics like childcare, insurance, power, and food. It's tough. If you're feeling this way, call our friends at American Financing. They're helping working Americans just like you tap into their home's equity to pay off their high interest debt and even create some additional savings to be ready for whatever life throws your way. With interest rates dropping, a company like American Financing that never charges any upfront or hidden fees is the perfect partner to help you get into better financial position. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving homeowners over $800 a month on average. Waiting is not an option. Call today. You may delay two mortgage payments. Call today. You may delay two mortgage payments. 888-991-9788. That is 888-991-9788. Or visit americanfinancing.com/Viva. It's in the description. Oh, it's amazing. They call it the inflation. It's the celebration parallax, by the way. Inflation's not happening, but it's transitory. And inflation's not happening, but price gouging is the cause of it. And by the way, if you want to make sure that you stay healthy in rough times, people, if you go to Field of Greens, you got to get your fruits and veggies in. Most people don't know this. You're supposed to eat 5 to 7 servings of raw fruits and vegetables a day. Most people do not do this. Most people have Diet Coke thinking it's diet and therefore not toxic aspartame that's going to make you feel bad and not make you any healthier. 5 to 7 servings of raw fruits and vegetables a day. But if you can't do it, Field of Greens, it's the best thing out there. Field of Greens is the healthiest habit. It's whole organic fruits and vegetables. This is exactly what your body needs for proper nutrition. Each organic superfruit and vegetable of Field of Greens was selected by doctors to support vital organs, heart, liver, kidneys, metabolism, and immune system. And only Field of Greens is backed by a better health promise. At your next checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Don't miss the massive end of summer sale. Go to fieldofgreens.com. Use my code VIVA to save on everything. You need to jump on the deal before it goes away. fieldofgreens.com/Viva. Go check it out. Links are in the description, everybody. Thank our sponsors. Go support the parallel economy. Support people who want to make you healthier, who want to save you money. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, now did I lose Ivan? That's it. I took too long. Ivan's gone. Ivan's going to pop back in a second. We need to talk. It's not just Kamala Harris. Hey, he's back in here. I was going to go off for like another 5 minutes on Kamala, but forget it. All right, people. Ivan. If you don't know who he is, you're going to know who he is. I included his description from Wikipedia as a gag. You got to love the way Wikipedia describes people. Ivan, you ready for this? Bada bing, bada boom. Sir, how goes the battle?
Excellent. Viva, thanks for having me. The most famous Canadian on the planet.
I say no.
How they introduce you, right?
Jim Carrey's first, Jordan Peterson second. Who else?
Never heard of them.
So there's some rock band who's apparently famous from Canada. Dude, Ivan, how often do you get George St. Pierre?
I get that very often, especially with, I guess you're a francophone as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tu parles un peu le français aussi?
Well, I should say I'm not a francophone, but I'm bilingual. I studied my law. I did law in French, studied in Paris for a bit.
Okay, très bien.
Where are you from, Ivan?
So I was born in New York, in Bronx, okay? In the Bronx. But I did pick a few languages along the way. Spanish, with a name like Ivan, obviously it's Spanish. It's Mexican, right?
No, well, your last name is Raiklin or Raiklin?
Either one, but most of the time I pronounce it Raiklin.
All right, and I won't dive too far into childhood.
I've been called worse.
Well, dude, I've read some bios and some articles. I know what you've been called. If you don't, do you talk about your? I didn't listen to your Tucker interview because I didn't want to know.
Everything is open. I have nothing like. Every question is available, not like Kamala Harris, which zero questions are available.
No, she could probably answer her childhood questions, easily enough without screwing up. Although I think
my parents fled the Soviet Union in the 70s to the United States. I was born a couple years later in 76. They were political asylees, and then I picked up Russian speaking at home as a heritage speaker. And then when I was growing up in New York, and then later Iowa, and then from there I picked up a little bit of Spanish, going to high school, college, exchange programs, as well as Arabic and the Special Forces qualification course, and then a little bit of French along the way, just as a little side hobby, if you will. I'm 5 out of 6 UN official languages. I still have yet to learn Mandarin, Putonghua, as they say.
I'll say how fluent, how proficient in all of the languages?
So I would say professionally, I'm fluent in Russian and Spanish. So I can hold my own and hold a debate and a discussion. French, I understand it. I could basically get by, survival at this point. Arabic, same thing. I used to be, fluent in Arabic, but it's, I haven't really used it. And then I think that's about it. English, I struggle through it, but
you're doing not bad.
My moments.
So both your parents married in Russia and then fled in the late 70s?
Yeah. So the story, here's kind of the story a lot of people ask me about, is that how did they come to the United States? Well, in 1970s, you had what's called the Jackson-Vanik Amendment, which allowed for persecuted folks. And in this case, it would have been my father's mother was Jewish. And so he was in a position to be able to flee the Soviet Union under that guise. But my mother, I grew up as a Christian, Russian Orthodox, right? So my parents had to flee because my father, when he was in his graduate program in the 60s, as Khrushchev came to Iowa and to the United States and saw that corn was growing from north to south in the state of Iowa, he wanted to replicate that in the Soviet Union, in the tundra, in the Siberia, in the Arctic Circle, all the way down to, the Soviet southern republics of Georgia, Azerbaijan, etc. Well, if you're kind of a not even so critical thinker, but if you're like a geography, not 101, but 001, you can kind of tell during that time you probably can't grow corn in the Arctic Circle or Siberia, right? And so he was calling that out as part of his thesis. He was doing his graduate program on economics, and he was calling that out. KGB caught wind of it and then talked to his thesis chair. His thesis chair was able to defend him from not going to the gulag for being, for speaking truth to power. And so he was kicked out of university and then found out a way through the dissident underground communications platform, because Telegram didn't exist back then. Neither did Truth or Rumble or X 2.0, right? Or Twitter 2.0. And so through the underground tapes, he figured out a way to flee the Soviet Union with, my mom and then my 3 siblings in tow, came to the United States under this Jackson-Vanik Amendment and started, fresh in America, fleeing the Soviet Union, fleeing communism. And now I'm at a position where we have to face it ourselves, and there's nowhere to run to. So what part of Green Beret and constitutional lawyer did they not understand when they tried to take away my constitutional rights and those that I respect the most? And so that's why I'm in this fight.
No, we're definitely going to get into that as well. So 3 siblings born in Russia, immigrated here. You're born here. Any other siblings after you born here? No, I'm the last. I'm the youngest. So my brother was 10 months old when he came over to the U.S. So baby. And then my sisters were, I think, 4 and 5 or 5 and 6. So toddlers when they came to the United States. And your parents are coming. Do they have a job when they come here, or are they coming?
No, nothing. Clean slate. No English language whatsoever. So my father ended up learning English, obviously. He was an accountant before he was in his graduate program. So he was an accountant at a grocery store and then worked his way up to learn English sufficiently to get accepted to Columbia University. Did his first year at Columbia, which is, it's a pretty respectable institution in New York. But wasn't able to, he didn't finish there because he was offered a scholarship at the New School for Social Research. He got his PhD in economics and then ended up teaching at the University of Northern Iowa. That's what, took me to Iowa in 1986. And I went to school there, my formative years, my work ethic, and my kind of moderated, perspective on American society. I wasn't involved in politics whatsoever, just kind of growing up. And then I had joined the military, and then 97 in the National Guard, ROTC later on. 25 years later, I ended up looking at myself in the mirror and was like, oh, wait, I got a quarter of a century underneath my belt as a Green Beret, intel officer, military diplomat, speaking 5 languages across multiple, deployed across multiple continents, countering ISIS, Taliban, MS-13, Russian aggression. So hitting that component of the constitutional defense known as foreign threats and enemies. And as I observed the illegal activity of our lawless and belligerent executive branch, specifically in 2020, but even more so back in 2017, I observed it in 2014, really, because I served on the Ukraine crisis team in the Pentagon at the National Military Command Center, as I observed the failed vice president, his crack baby son Hunter, traveling over there, and his CIA director doing what he was doing. My kind of spidey senses woke up, and I started to look and dig. And then later, when what they did to General Flynn and the transition from 16 to 17, I kind of I've had a first or second row seat to a lot of that weaponization, which started off with General Flynn, which was their number one existential threat. And it didn't sit well with me. And knowing my background and what they did to my father, it's basically what they did to General Flynn is exactly what the KGB was. Well, not exactly, but at some extent similar or synonymous, rhymes with what the KGB did to my father. So really 2 aspects. Knowing the story of I'm glad you kind of started with that, with my father and my parents having to flee the United States, and what I observed as an analyst at the Defense Intelligence Agency when General Flynn was the director. Nothing that the media was putting out was any remote congruence with the reality that I observed myself and everyone that I knew in the system and respected had observed. So then I had to dig and dig further and dig further. And that's why I've basically at this point created what's known as the deep state target list. And that list is about a little over, before it was 350, it is over 600 individuals by category, where I can step you through, Viva, by name, date, place, and transgression, the individuals that were involved in from illegal spying operation on the Trump campaign and General Flynn and Carter Page, all the way through all of the escalatory cover-ups that they committed, the same people and their affiliates, to include the January 6th Fedsurrection, the Fedsurrection cover-up, the censorship industrial complex, the COVID con, the impeachment hoaxes 1 and 2, the Mueller investigative team. I remember I spent 25 years in the system. And when I say 25 years in the system, East Coast and West Coast, which are very important to understand. What I mean by that is my last assignment, if you will, as a contractor, I was an instructor at the Defense Intelligence Agency, teaching at what's known as the Joint Military Intelligence Training Center. The program that I taught, a 7-week program that we run quarterly, and it brings in analysts from our U.S. intel community, all intel agencies, and our international partners, NATO, European allies, Asian, African, throughout the whole globe. Okay, these are the students, the most technically premier professional designees of these nations that are partnering with the United States to be professional civilian and military analysts. So what do I teach them? I teach them about what is the United States national security apparatus, from A to Z, top to bottom, left to right, down to the individual. Okay, all branches of our government. Article 1, the Armed Services Committees, the Intel Oversight Committees, right? Article 2, all 17 Intel community members, as well as the Director of National Intelligence and the broader U.S. governmental interagency national security system. And then the Article 3 branch of known as the FISA process in the courts. So I have a little bit more understanding and knowledge about the system than, let's just say, anybody at Criminal News Network, MSLSD, Faux News, Washington Compost, New Woke Slimes, Raw Sewage, and on and on and on. As well as the fact checkers at Twitter 1.0, Fakebook, Insta Garbage, etc.
Well, I'm trying to think. Raw sewage is which one? All the other ones I got. Raw sewage.
Raw sewage. They pronounce it sometimes story incorrectly.
Okay, got it.
Anyhow, and smother jokes, right? Or Huffington Compost. You know those.
Oh yeah, no, those. I got 9 out of 10 of them. I just said the raw story was. But I actually, before we even get there,
one more sentence, if I may. So my East Coast intel community national security apparatus understanding, would you agree there's not many people that have that insight, right?
No,
I can name maybe one or two, but then on the West Coast. So I was also a reservist, a lieutenant colonel in the reserves, as a technology scout as my last assignment in the Silicon Valley and Greater Bay Area, where I sought out companies and technologies in the artificial intelligence, mixed reality, and gaming ecosystem that could provide a capability, if they were interested in selling into the Army and the DoD and the national security apparatus. Meaning, I have knowledge, network, expertise, and relationships bi-coastally between the big tech ecosystem and the national security apparatus. And when they violated my norms and principles and my constitution, I wasn't going to sit idly by. So they basically weaponized me, a very, very insider, against them. And then unfortunately for them, I am very clean. They've conducted over 20 investigations on me across DOD, DHS, DOJ. I have receipts for all of it. Thankfully, I have people on the inside that tell me and alert me when an investigation starts, and I get to know exactly who is investigating me, down to the individual. And that triggers my investigating them to make sure that they are operating within their legal authorities. And when they deviate, that's when I put their name out publicly on my social media channels for people to look into and scratch that itch. And so then they're in a predicament. Do I listen to the illegitimate Biden regime and try to get something on Ivan? And if I do that, I risk Ivan exposing all my transgressions personally, my family, my neighbors, my friends, my relatives. And it is a high probability that Ivan will go to the same shopping area that I shop, because most of these people are my neighbors. I live in Northern Virginia. So it may be so that I might bump into a Brian Otten, who was the supervisory intel analyst on the Crossfire Hurricane team. Or I won't name some of the other names yet because I haven't quite found enough to go ahead and put their name out publicly for them to squirm. But if they're going to listen into this, which I'm sure they will, they know who they are and they follow every move I make. So that's the bi-coastal component that I want you to understand as we go further and dig into the censorship industrial complex on the left coast, and then those that promoted and manipulated that censorship industrial complex from the East Coast. I can go into every single name.
Oh, well, we'll get. I mean, look, we're going to get into a lot of it. Our crowd is going to know already a lot of this. We overlap probably in terms of audience and certainly in terms of information. My own curiosity: Green Beret for 25 years?
No, so I become 25 years in the military in the collective. Okay.
Okay.
I became a Green Beret in 2010, and then I retired in August of 2022. So technically, if you want to like fact check me, the technicality is from 2010 to 2022, I was a Green Beret.
Now,
so 12 years.
I'm under the impression that right up there with Navy SEALs in terms of badassery are the Green Berets. Am I wrong? Like, what does a Green Beret do?
So yeah, I would say that Navy SEALs aren't quite as intellectual as Green Berets, but physically, most Green Berets can't swim as well as Navy SEALs, but we do have scuba teams, and I've served on a scuba team, right? So with that said, the main difference between a Navy SEAL and a Green Beret is this, and I want you to like understand this very well, Viva, and apply it to what we're going to discuss. So a Green Beret's primary mission that we train for is to conduct what is termed as unconventional warfare. That specifically means that a team that I lead as an officer, a detachment, goes into another country, example, say Afghanistan, link up with an indigenous force that is currently, from that government in Afghanistan's perspective, an insurgency. And we, America, are then authorized on behalf of the national security ecosystem, the team, right, the Green Beret team, to link up, train, advise, and equip that local indigenous force so that they can overthrow their own government and then are now in power. And then that's called unconventional warfare. Train, advise, and equip to overthrow the power that is inimical to American interests, to install somebody that is friendly to American interests. And then after that happens, the secondary mission is known as foreign internal defense, which basically makes sure that that new government is now capable of fighting the former government to make sure that they don't come back and be an insurgent force. So imagine that framework and capability, and you limit it by the legal, moral, ethical, and constitutional framework that is allowed in the United States. That's basically politics, right? So knowing that as my backdrop, and knowing as a constitutional attorney, I focus on national security law and constitutional law because I became an attorney, when was that? 2005, right? 19 years.
Hold on a second. You became an attorney in what year?
Currently.
You don't know, in later stages of life. You're already an adult. So 20 years ago. So you're 25 when you go get, 20, give or take 20.
How old was I?
23?
29 was I?
Dude, okay, no. To me, and you get the age, you later on in life, ish, but young life, you get your law degree. It's not like you dabbled. You have your law degree and you have a specialty?
Yeah, so my focus is on personnel security, national security, and constitutional law, like in the national security ecosystem. What does that mean? Advising folks on how to gain and maintain a top secret clearance to be able to be involved in the government, and then different components, advisory as it applies to the national security elements subordinate to providing for the common defense clause, right, of the Constitution. But then it expanded further once I observed the illegal 2020 election. Well, this is where you probably have to get off of CommiTube.
I think I'm going to take a chance and leave it and tell everyone to go.
You got to keep in mind once we get into the unsafe and ineffective products, I think that's when we're going to have to get you off. Otherwise, they're going to.
Screw it. Let's just do it. No, we'll do it now. We're ending on YouTube now. I'm not in a fear. I'm going to post the entire thing afterwards, but screw them.
So
The
Hodge
discussion.
twins, they canceled me when I did Hodge twins like that.
Shut
by the way.
up. Well, I'll take my chances later. And all right, we're ending on YouTube. Come on over. The link is in there. Rumble, Viva Frei, or vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Removing now. Suck a lemon, YouTube. Okay.